Hello everyone, this is Rito and we are back with Warcry and a very special guest today. Please welcome the Salty Sea.
Hey there. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks so much. And I'm excited about this topic because it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, because we decided that we would be talking about allies today. I've had a lot of questions about allies. People ask me what would be the best ally to bring with their list, with a specific faction and so on. Those are very specific questions, so we decided to give you our top picks for allies for each of the grand alliances, and that should really help you identify who you would want to bring for your warband specifically. So I'm gonna make the first talk about the first one here, and then we'll discuss like why we each pick the guys we have here, and yeah, why we think they are good and why the other person might have picked something else. So for order is a very difficult one because there's a ton of great choices for order. But the first one I picked here was the High Sentinel. He is the High Elf, Lumineth Realm Lord is what they are called, archer character. What I think is great about him is that he's very cheap and he can really buff up the strength of any ranged warband because he allows you to pick one specific enemy model within 20 inches of him. That's a great distance away, and anyone who attacks him gets a buff to their attacks characteristic of 1. So if I have a band of 8 skinks, for example, and I target something, whatever, one enemy model, then all of my skinks are going to have extra attacks against them. Let's say all of them attack him once, that's going to be 16 extra attacks. That's awesome. Yeah, what do you think about him?
Yeah, I think the High Sentinel's really good. It's amazing for those missions like Blood Marked or Cut Off the Head, right, where you just have to kill one unit.
Yes.
And the fact that he buffs your other deployment zones is really nice. I
Yeah.
do think, yeah, for ranged warbands in order, I think people should test whether the High Sentinel or the Aether Chemist or like a Living City general, like maybe the Assassin or the Iron Warden, um, like which one of those options would be best for their warband and their situation. Because I do think it really changes, but absolutely, the High Sentinel is one of the three picks I would say that everyone who likes to play ranged should test out for sure.
Yeah. Right. So what's your first choice then?
Yeah, so I went with the Bloodrack Medusa from Daughters of Khaine, and it just it kind of is emblematic of everything I like in a big unit. It's pretty fast. I think 7-inch movement.
Yeah.
Um, it's got a really decent chance for killing chaff units in just one hit. So I put the percentages here of 44% for a 10 wound chaff model and 72% for 8 wounds, which I just really value that highly to be able to go kill a unit that hasn't even activated yet. It's a really good way to fight if your opponent has more units than you. And then
Absolutely.
that chance it has, it's like you roll 2 dice and only one of them has to go above a 3 to lock something in place. It can still activate to attack, but she's got 2-inch range on that huge spear, so you can, hit something for 2 inches, use your ability, and now it can't attack you back. That can be really great for like attacking the other team's most valuable fighter.
Yeah, I think you really came up with a great one here because I didn't even have her like in mind anymore at this point. Daughters of Cain has been a long time ago. Anyway, so yeah,
Yeah.
what a great pick! What a great pick! She's really strong, 7-inch movement, as you say, so good, and then that ability. We know netting abilities where you can just disable a powerful piece are so good, and she has one of the better ones. Yeah, great model. You're absolutely right there. Do you remember the point cost at the moment?
Ooh, I think it's 255, but I can check to be sure since I've got my book with me here.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is 255. So it's a big commitment in your warband, but I think it's worth it just because of how much work she does on her own.
Yeah, I think uh, 255 obviously is a big commitment, as you say. That's a quarter of your warband. It's power, but she's powerful. She does offer a lot of stuff. I think she's going to be better in warbands day where you do have quite a bit of chaff to play around with because you don't want to go too light on models. But yeah, she's going to be a great one. Well then, for our next pick, we kind of went the same direction. I picked a Tempest Eye Battle Mage. You picked the Rune Lord there. Um, I'm just going to talk about Tempest Eye for the moment, and then you can maybe add why you want the Rune Lord over others. Um, Tempest Eye is the city of Sigmar that gives every leader, access to basically a war buff, so a movement buff to everyone within 6 inches of them. It's just gonna be super competitive. If you have any slow warband, that can be powerful for even Stormcast warbands, although you're not gonna have many models there. But for any warband where you struggle with mobility, this is just gonna ramp you up so much. Um, they have a good quad even as well. Um, yeah, it's a great model. So sorry, a great city really, and which model you bring within the city almost doesn't matter to me, as long as it's not too expensive. And the battle mage gets another ability which he can do some damage at range with, which isn't bad, but yeah,
Yeah, for me, it all depends, like which Tempest Eye unit you're going to bring on, really just depends on the warband that you have and what your abilities are. Like if your quad is underwhelming, then I would agree the Battle Mage is probably a better choice than the Rune Lord. But if you love the quad in your warband, then, the Rune Lord gives you that ability to kind of Forge Fire lets you buff the attack of one unit, and then that unit can then use Onslaught. Um,
yeah,
on its turn when it attacks and gets some really huge damage. But for the most part, Tempest Eye has as many good ally options as some of the other Grand Alliances do. So
yeah.
you, like you said before, you almost can't go wrong.
You're right there. Yeah, Tempest Eye. It's a close one. There's many good cities of Sigma. As you mentioned, the Living City before, we talked about. So for ranged warbands, Greywater Fastness isn't even a bad one for ranged warbands either. So
Hmm.
out of the cities ones, if you have any of those cities of Sigma hero models, maybe lying around from old fantasy or just got one because you wanted one, you can basically bring that and customize them to whatever need you want, basically, which is awesome. Well then, let's get to someone who has a lot less picks, less good picks, which is Chaos. They are still, well, they have less good picks, but they have the elephant in the room, probably the ally to bring in Warcry at the moment. Also, some people would agree at least, and we both agreed on it anyways. So, the Contorted Epitome, 250 points, again pretty pricey, but she comes with a ridiculously good ability that allows you to just skip the turn of an enemy model. So you can just pick one enemy and he doesn't get to activate. Doesn't matter if they are ranged, they can't move, they can't shoot, they can't do nothing. They just don't get to activate. And that's ridiculously powerful. On top of that, she has good damage output. What's not to love?
Yeah, I hear some people sometimes say things like, "Oh, well, what's the big deal? You just move your best unit first. Like you just use a wild dice to get priority and move your best unit first." But the problem with that is as often as possible, you want to wait to commit your best piece to the board until you've seen the round shape up and see what it looks like what your best tactical option is. So if you're having to use your best piece first, then she's messed you up without even using her ability, right? So sometimes just
Yeah,
the threat of her ability can completely ruin your opponent's plans.
absolutely. And having to secure that initiative because otherwise you're gonna lose your best model for the turn also means that you might not use that wild dice to the best of its ability. Maybe you would have used that otherwise to get a quad that could have been really powerful or whatever. And so forcing the opponent to making possibly bad decisions is already insanely powerful, as you say. Yeah.
Mhm.
Great stuff. Great stuff, the contorted epitome, but don't bring it when you're playing your wife. That's all I'm gonna say.
Very true.
Right, so yeah, please go on with your next choice then.
Yeah, so I picked Floppity Bile Piper. Now, I might be wrong, but this was the only like mass mobility buff I could find in the whole Grand Alliance. Um,
That is true, yeah.
and I think, yeah, so I think that just for that choice, if this were in order, right, or like all the Tempest Eye ones, you could pick over Sloppity or Death and Destruction both have options there. But for Chaos, if you have a slow warband, Sloppity Bile Piper is kind of your best bet. So I'm thinking about like Slaves to Darkness, where their best chaff unit would be an incredible unit if it had moved more than 4, right? So
Yep,
Sloppity, is with flails.
yep,
Sloppity is like a perfect choice in there to speed up your marauders. Yeah, just any of these move 4 chaff units that would be really incredible in Warcry if they just had an extra piece. Sloppity can be the missing link right there.
totally agree. He's even usable in some of the OG Chaos warbands, so in some of the Warcry specific ones. For example, Spire Tyrants, they suffer from only being movement 4 across the entire board.
Mhm.
Throwing that movement 3 dwarf out and replacing him with the Sloppity Piper, who's gonna give a bunch of you guys movement 5, is really not a bad choice. Yeah, Chaos suffers in this respect because they only get that. He's only ever gonna get add you 1 movement. He's not as good as you said, like Tempest Eye or the War in Destruction. They all get better movement abilities, but at least he's a choice here. So for my choice, I picked the Deathmaster um, because he's he's 200 points, so he's not that cheap, not that expensive though. Normal, kind of normal leader territory. He does have high movement with movement 7. He has very good damage output, and then he gets obviously the great Skaven triple ability that allows you to buff everyone within 3 inches of you by half the value of the ability for your attacks. So you're possibly adding 3, normally pops more likely 2 attacks to everyone around you. And in a close quarters fight, this is ridiculously powerful. Yeah,
Yeah, I love that he has like 15-inch threat range when he's using that ability, which for just a little rat standing around not riding anything,
yeah,
I think can catch people out, right? It's pretty incredible. And then, like you said, he has really good damage output. I think he's like 2/3 chance to kill a chaff unit in 1 hit when he's using his ability, so he can really surprise people
yeah,
in any of the missions that require that kind of jumping threat.
right. And also, like, he's a model that you're never gonna use in Age of Sigmar, so if you have one, there you go. Finally,
Funny.
his time to shine.
I've never played Skaven in AOS, so that's funny.
He's horrible in AOS. All this Clan Ashen stuff is, but that's a topic for a different day. Um, yeah, go on. What's your first pick for death then?
Yeah, so we went pretty similar with this one,
Yeah,
with both using the abhorrence, you the Ghoul King, me the Archregent. And what I love about them, they both do this, is you have this mobility buff. I think it's called Bringer of Death, and you can actually pump more than one point of movement into your deployment zone with it, which is really nice.
yeah,
So it also gives you its own kind of warband strategy in one piece, right? Because you can pop the mobility buff in round 1, and then in rounds 2 and 3, you're really happy about the AOE damage buff. He doesn't buff himself anymore, which is too bad, but otherwise, it's really nice. And so, whether you choose the Ghoul King or the Archregent, totally based on points, like you said in your notes. Your points to spare, whether you want the extra damage or
yeah.
not.
It really doesn't matter. Like I just went Ghoul King just not to go archery like you did. And I was like,
Yeah.
it's literally you can go both ways no matter what. It's really gonna depend on what you want to cut from your warband or how many points you got in your campaign. Let's not forget about campaigns.
Hmm.
So whatever. So he just got two massive abilities that on their own are gonna make literally any warband viable, I think. So great choice there. Well, for my choice, I went with the necromancer. He's not one of the new models. He's been around for a while. So in Warcry as well, he's been around for a while, but he's just good. He gets a lot of abilities. His quad, Van Hal's Dance Macabre, is really, really nice, and it's very unique as well. It's not something that anyone else has. He basically can give extra moves or attacks to a lot of models around him. It's a quad, and you can pick for the value so many models as you have value of the ability. So say it's a quad 4, you can pick 4 models to each get either a bonus move or a bonus attack, whatever they need. It's really cool, really powerful in my opinion. And on top of that, he can obviously revive models, which all the Nighthaunt can do as well. But yeah, that's also good. Yeah,
Yeah, I like that quad. I mean, really any quad in the game that's truly unique, I think is absolutely worth
yeah.
looking at as far as as far as allying in. And I think his own warband is really perfect for using it, but the other death warbands can definitely get some kicks out of it too.
For sure, for sure. And I mean, Legions
So,
of Nagash got more
oh yeah,
options now. Sorry.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, exactly.
so yeah. Anyways, go on.
Oh yeah, so I went with the slasher crone out of Nighthaunt, for the same reason as being able to revive models that you went with the necromancer being really useful, especially OBR and flesh eater courts can really use those revive abilities to their full effect.
Yeah,
And then the slasher crone's also got the netter ability, and it is on a triple, which is too bad, but that's still valuable to have, especially if your warband doesn't have access to it. um, yeah, netter abilities are just always useful. And then she's got all right damage potential too, being able to fly around. So I think she's a good all around piece. If this were chaos or order, would she make the cut? Probably not, but I still think it's a valuable thing to look at.
yeah. I think I was surprised by this pick, but then I looked at her and I agree with you. She's good. Like as you said, nets are just generally good. We've seen them across a couple of the a couple of the guys here already of our picks, and this is just another example of a pretty good all-round unit. She's gonna add value to basically any warband. Yeah. So my pick for destruction, it had to be the War Chanter. He, no one's going to be surprised by that because I talk about him literally every second video I do. But he has the perfect combination of the war that allows you to move a lot, and then it's only a double that allows everyone to get extra attacks around him, which is so ridiculously good. I still don't understand why it's a double and not a triple like it is for everyone else in the game. I can't just I just can't not bring the War Charter in my opinion. He's just too great.
Yeah, I mean, it's, the same set of abilities as the abhorrence, so it's easy to think that it's the same. But yeah, that double giving you the ability to use wild dice for other abilities to use with the rest of your warband is amazing, and also perfect for allying in, right? Because you probably have a leader who you care about their abilities too, so you can be using your wild dice for them, um,
Yeah,
in all the later rounds after round one.
exactly. And I mean, if you have someone like if you have a triple for another leader in your warband that can buff attacks, for example, well, you can easily have a triple and a double, get two buff
Mhm.
auras going, and it's gonna boost your damage through the roof.
Yeah.
Right. Anyways, um, What about your Squig Hopper?
Yeah, so the Squig Hopper boss is really just kind of an assassin piece, a lot like how you picked the Death Master for Chaos. I'd say the Squig Hopper boss is sort of Destruction's version of that.
Yeah.
He's got, the two-thirds chance of one-shot killing a chaff unit, which is really nice, and then um, any of these sort of big 10-inch flyers are always going to be pretty valuable. And then the Gloomspite gets quad ability is like strangely powerful. Um,
Yes.
I don't
People have
know
complained
what it
about
is.
it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like it's not that much better than Rampage when it's good, but you know, any quad that's better than Rampage, even when Rampage would be good, is uh is kind of eyebrow raising when you actually use it.
Yes.
Um, yeah,
This gives
so
you such ridiculous amounts of damage because it adds the value of the ability to each crit and hit, if I'm not mistaken, on the bonus
yep,
attack. And this guy's 5 attacks, right? Or four
yeah,
attacks?
yeah, as opposed to his brother with the spear with just 4 attacks. But
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, so it makes sense bringing him if you want to run that quad with him. 5 attacks, that's each gonna do, say, 3 to 4 to 5 extra damage per hit. That's ridiculous. Yeah, you gotta kill stuff.
yeah,
No, yeah, it's a good choice as well. I think some warbands struggle with the high mobility and really hunting something, so yeah, they are gonna like the Squig Hopper for sure. Um, yeah, I then picked something quite opposite to that. He's not fast, he's not furious, he's very small and very cheap. It's the Boggle Eye for also Gloomspite Kits. He's a very cheap net model. And obviously, he isn't doesn't have that great a place in Gloomspite Guilds themselves because they have a netter and they don't really need him. But he's great as an ally. Um, I don't know that Ironjaws have a netter. I don't know that Bone Splitters have a netter, and Ogres don't have one either. So all other destruction factions can really benefit from him for a very, very cheap price.
yeah. I think we could have made the destruction section just top four Gabapalooza units to ally
Yes.
into your warband. um, I like your pick of Boggle for number one, and I think Brugit and I think it's Shrewmancer for number two and three are also just
Yes.
really good
Oh,
out of
crazy good.
that one. Yeah. Um, I was too much of a coward to pick some of the cool Gabapalooza units for mine, but yeah, I love them.
So what did you go with instead then?
Yeah, so I went with the Thunder Fist. Um, even though, so this is a bit of a cop out, right? Because I don't think most war bands would really get a ton of use from the Thunder Fist. I think you want to have a lot of sort of chaff and melee units supporting it. But I when I'm looking through the destruction book, I'm just always convinced. Oh, I should give background on it. So it's a big ogre model that does quite a bit of damage, and it has that one ability that we're all bored with, where if you get a kill, then you get to spend dice to go again. But that ability is much better on high damage ranged units. The Stormcast have a few that are good with it too. Um,
Yep.
much better on those types of units than it is on regular melee units because you can finish something off and just get the bonus really easily. And then a ton of units are going to be within your strike range once you do. Um, but most warbands aren't going to get the most value from it. Whenever I look through the destruction book, I just think that the most competitive warband in that book is either Maw Tribes allying in the Squighopper boss or Gits allying in the Thunder Fist. I just think the combo of those two units together with all of the really cheap chaff models that both of those warbands can put together is just really scary.
Yeah. Uh, Again, something I didn't even think about, Thunderfist. He's obviously considered one of the powerhouses in the Ogre More tribes for sure, but even in Destruction Book, I'd say. And he's definitely very, very good. And yeah, allying him in, why not? You're right, with Gloomspite Gitz, he could do some ridiculous damage and really thrive. I like that pick. Really cool. And that even brings us to the end of our list. All we have now is honorable mentions that didn't quite make it. So one I wanted to mention was the Ether Chemist because he's also good. He's great. He's got a nice triple that can stop enemy, like reduce enemy attacks around him. He's got the very good leader ability for all the sorry, what's it called? Character overlords, which buffs attacks and buffs them by 2 if you're next to an objective, which is just crazy cool. So I think the Ether Chemist can have a great place in many warbands as well. Just didn't think he was quite as good as some of the other picks, but I love him too.
Yeah, he's really good. After I did my top combos in Warcry video, a couple people actually reached out to me to ask about what about Aether Chemist plus a bunch of skinks? Um,
Yeah,
and that does seem like a pretty tough,
that is a
tough
very good combo.
situation for your opponent. Yeah,
That's it. Yeah, and then you picked the
yeah.
Enlightened Aviarch.
Yeah, so there's two options for this unit. One is the 5-inch move for 220, and the other is the 10-inch flying version for 260. And it's just so it's really meta dependent because the damage it deals with its ability falls off pretty quickly on like toughness 4 and toughness 5 models, which isn't usually the case, right? Usually high toughness is kind of a waste of points in this
Yeah.
game, but specifically the Enlightened Aviarch with his ability just absolutely blows toughness 3 models off of the board, um, which I just think is really useful in certain metagames, right? It's just a great choice for, if your buddy has uh, a certain sort of competitive warband that's really, a pain in your butt. Uh, the Aviarch can solve a lot of problems, even if it isn't going to be good in every matchup.
And I mean, 10-inch fly is always good, right? And
That's true. 10-inch fly is never totally
you
useless.
can't really go bad with 10-inch fly. And yeah, he's a powerful model. Kind of like the Gloomspite Gitz Quick Hopper boss. He's on a kind of a same line there in terms of really being a hunter hero. So yeah,
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. And having one of those in your warband can be really nice in certain missions.
yeah, fully agree. I think some of the stronger warbands have at least one powerful 10-inch move guy, and this is definitely one that you could ally into many Chaos warbands too.
Hmm.
Anyways, we're at the end already. Thank you very much for joining me. Please, everyone, do go out and check out the Salty Seas channel. I'm gonna link him in the video and in the description, and maybe in the comments too, if I can remember. We recently did another video together that's uploaded on his channel already about the metagame in General's Handbook. Sorry, no, we created a General's Handbook really for tournament play for Warcry. So if you want to check that out, please do head over there and give him a subscribe. And yeah, thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next one.